Okay.
Hello, and welcome to episode 7 of INGames with me, Spike, and Andy. We've got a really special episode this week, something very close to all of us in the UK games industry, especially. Joined by some wonderful guests from Special Effect. Um, Andy, I don't know if you want to take away the introductions.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. What a lovely afternoon. Sorry about last week. We weren't able to broadcast, but we are now. Um, Three amazing guests. Let me ask all of you to, one at a time, just briefly introduce yourself. And I'll start off with Dr. Mick Donegan.
Okay. Hi, I'm Mick Donegan, and I'm founder and CEO of the charity Special Effect. That, for those of you who don't know about, is I'll tell you about in a moment.
Liz, would you give us a...
Yeah, my name is Liz. I'm one of the occupational therapists who work on the service delivery team at Special Effect.
Cool. And Rich?
Hi, I'm Rich Eddy. I'm with Jagex, and I've been a special effect ambassador for the last 10 years or so.
Well, thank you, everybody. Good stuff. So, look, if we could just assume that nobody knows anything about Special Effect. We obviously all do, but let's try and just explain, who are Special Effect and really what does Special Effect do? Mick, would you like to sort of take us away on that?
Yeah, absolutely. And if it's okay, I've got a few sort of pictures that will accompany what I'm saying, and then I'll show a little video. So this won't take long. But if I just go here to PowerPoint, and then hopefully, can everybody see that? See the screen?
We can. If you just
Great.
hit the presentation mode.
Great. So yeah, I say these just pictures. This, believe it or not, is me with sporting a very sandy moustache there, and a pre-lockdown mullet back in the day in the 80s when I was a teacher, deputy head of a special school. And I've worked with technology for education and helping people who can't speak communicate to use speech output devices, that sort of thing. I've done that for a very long time. I then became deputy director of a national centre that was helping young people to access education and to be able to communicate. This little girl couldn't speak, for example, and one of the questions that the parents came up with time and time again is, how can my child play? It's great being able to access their education, but how are they going to have fun? What are they going to do at 3:30 in the afternoon? They've never played with their brother or sister. They find it very, very difficult to make friends. So it just struck me there's a big hole in these children's world, but there's nowhere to send them to. There's nowhere in the UK, no specialist centre like ours, which was dedicated to video games. So I just decided to go and start at my own charity. And it wasn't just me who felt this strongly. It's actually Article 31, United Nations Rights of the Child. Every child has the right to play, and the great thing about video games is that it gives every child the right to play. And I wasn't only interested in children, but I was also interested in helping everybody. I wanted to the whole idea was, if you like, if there was a mission, then the mission was to transform the quality of life of severely physically disabled people throughout the world through access to video games. It's pointless being an inclusive charity unless you're global. In my view, I just felt that I wanted to make an impact for everybody.
Mick, can I just quickly ask you a question? When did you start Special Effect?
Yeah, it was in 2007, and it's interesting that you say that, because I got some clips from around that time. I mean, I carried on with my other job for about 4 years and only joined in 2011, in fact. But around that time, I just collected a few of these newspaper items from around that time, so you can see, in terms of starting a charity that was going to have an appeal to the kinds of people who traditionally fund charities, it was somewhat risky. And we were very lucky in that not only local businesses realized what the potential benefits were, but also they were hugely helpful in the Oxfordshire, West Oxfordshire area, but also over time, the games industry began to appreciate what we were doing. And our approach has always been that we're catalysts, not campaigners. We're not a campaigning charity. We're just here to try and facilitate change. We're here if the games industry want to collaborate with us to make technology more accessible. So what, our motto, if you like, is we're not saying what should be done, but showing what could be done. And that often involves hacking the actual hardware and as well as the software, doing what we can, gathering together whatever equipment we can, assistive technology equipment, making some, but also teaming up with the games industry as well, which I'll tell you about in a minute. But it's all by working with individuals. Everything we learn from working with individuals that we work with, and every day we learn more and more and more. And here's just a quick clip, if it's okay, of a 1-minute clip to show you the kinds of people that we're working with and learning from by sharing meeting their particular needs.
Yeah, here we go.
Nobody likes being left out. That's why Special Effect are helping people with physical disabilities to play video games. But this isn't just about having fun. The gaming setups we create are personalised, so people can play to the very best of their abilities. And that opens the door to inclusion and independence, confidence and creativity. Help us level the playing field and create more magical gaming moments. Because it's everyone's turn to play.
Great. It's our first ever video on INGames as well, Mick. So I think that went without a hitch, I hope.
Good grief. Well, brilliant. Gosh, because all I could see was your 5 faces. Look, and I was wondering whether you actually said anything.
It went live, and it's a very important video, obviously. So.
Yeah, well, thank you. As I say, hopefully that explains a little bit to the people who don't know anything at all about us. But basically, through working with people with all ages, all disabilities, all games, all challenges, the idea is that we learn enough to be able to. The idea is, that we learn enough to be able to share what we know with people all around the world. I'll just check. Are you able to see that again, guys?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, great. Sorry. In that case, I'll go back. Now, yeah, here we go. Sorry. Yeah, how we help disabled people all over the world. So we use what we learn. We help all those individuals, but the idea is to help people all over the world. And the way that we do that is 2 ways. Is through online training materials and information. And just to give you an idea of the kind of thing that we're doing, we've been producing these kinds of videos now for, over 2 years. Building up a resource, and this information. It's partly for the people with disabilities themselves to see what can be done, to find out, how you can have the kind of controls that will make Forza make the most of the steering, the super easy steering, for example, the assists and accessibility features in Forza. Here's a Final Fantasy, and you can see you can search for various subjects you can filter it, and there are tags there as well to find the kinds of games you want. There are over 60, I think, 70 odd videos. There are guides to equipment, etc. So it's a resource for people around the world who want to, therapists, parents, carers, etc., as well as people with disabilities themselves, to find out what can be done, what games can be accessed, and how to access it. So, and the lovely thing is, I mean, we just did some sums earlier today. And so here's one. Here's Nomi talking about accessibility of Sea of Thieves. As I say, this is the motorsport. And if you look there, 3,000 views that's had since December. Here's 7,000 views for how to set up voice controls for games on a PC. And as I say, we did the maths, and there are actually, we've had 685,000 views so far of these videos. And we haven't actually launched it. We've been building up the resources. It's been very much a soft launch, and information spreading by word of mouth, really.
I think that's really interesting, Mick, and it shows, the amount of people that are seeking out this type of content and wanting to make their games more accessible. Rich, I guess a quick question for you. Working at a game publisher, obviously. What do you think the game publishers? What do you think the position is of the developers and the publishers in making their games accessible? Obviously, it's difficult because everyone is so nuanced and the needs. But what can a game publisher or developer do to sort of help with this legwork?
Yep. Well, first of all, and I'll just go back because I've got one or two slides on that subject, and I'm sorry that I'm showing the slides, but it does help me to
I preempted, did I, Mick? Sorry.
Yeah. No, not at all. No, not at all. This is an example of, actually, goodness me, that was perfect timing, because here's someone from the games industry from EA in Madrid. Pablo Ortega, and they use the guides and tutorials for accessibility workshops for the staff. And thank you for creating these. They're very useful. And he's typical of developers and games companies. We are also working very hard on a specific dev kit for developers too, because we're getting more and more. So I'll tell you in a second. We're being asked to collaborate with more and more developers, and we just want to collaborate with. We want to help as many developers as possible. In general, we've been amazed by the response of developers, and we are working directly in partnership. And these are some examples now. We've been delighted by how our involvement has been welcomed by the industry. These are just some of the examples. It's not up to date. Over the years, these are some of the examples of companies that we've either collaborated with or are currently collaborating with, and there are plenty more besides. Some of the ones that we're currently working with, I can't talk about because they're non-disclosure. And while I'm talking about our work with the games industry, we do not charge for what we do, and we don't have. We don't have any intellectual property at all. It's simply, if people want to, and people don't even necessarily need to take notice of what we say, but they can invite us to give a comment, and they can invite, and they can take notice or not, depending on their own particular situation at that particular time. So in the same way, we don't charge for the services we offer the people that we help either, because, as I say, people have already waited quite a long time, waited too long to be able to access games as well as they possibly could. And it's great that to be invited to collaborate with these kinds of people. And here's with those companies, here's an example of something that we're really pleased about. We collaborated along with other organizations as well with Xbox to create the adaptive controller along with Bryce Johnson there. It took 3 years in the development, and it's really nice that they that they acknowledged that we had some influence there. That were more recently, that came out a couple of years ago and is selling very well. They're selling out occasionally. This is some nice words from Ujesh at Logitech. He, yet again, having seen the work, the things that can be achieved by switch access and other forms of access, they've developed a low cost in it and adaptive switch kit, and this is a kit that you can plug into. It's compatible with the Xbox, and so these resources are coming out, and as I say, we've been one of the organisations who've been invited to test out and collaborate in the development of these. As far as software is concerned, I'll just be very, very quick, but Ralph at Playground, as a result of collaborating with him, amongst other, accessibility features to Forza, single joystick controls for people with hemiplegia, amputees, etc., war veterans are able to use a single joystick. Or if people are just moving their heads, put a joystick by their chin, they're able to play as well. Tim Schaefer, we've made some of his games, Day of the Tentacle, for example, Broken Age, gaze accessible, and there's Bill there on our R&D guide testing it out. Sea of Thieves, Ted invited us to help with contextual remapping for Sea of Thieves. David Rutter, as a result of when he was working on FIFA. There are several features that enable people like this guy Arlo here on the bottom right. He's just got a single joystick and 2 buttons. He was able to play online, and he was able to he can sprint, etc., all of the features and control menus independently. So he was joining in with everybody else. We are and we're developing our own games as examples, but also, and these are specifically iGaze games, games like there's a driving game there, and chess games. People like Carter here, she's in Finland, we work with her, testing out there's a bagatelle style game, Mole Miners. Chess, you'll be able to play chess and drafts against anyone in the world using switches or eye gaze or head movement. Anyone will be able to play anyone else. This is the sort of bagatelle style game that is nearly ready now. And here's a driving game that you can play with switches or with your eyes or head movement or whatever that we're working on. iMine, that gives gaze access to Minecraft. So anyone around the world, this is freely downloadable. Those games are freely playable in a browser. Anybody in the world can now play Minecraft using just eye movement with a low-cost gaze tracker. So those are some of the
Before we go, thank you. That's amazing. Go on to the COVID-19 situation, because there's calls all over the world now for much more diversity and accessibility, and it occurs that special effect, that's been baked in from the start. It's arguably what you do. Obviously, this opens up a world of play on a pretty level playing field to a massive amount of people with disabilities, which before wouldn't have been possible. Can I just ask you a kind of left field question? Do you think that other people would be able to, the adaptive controllers, I'm thinking about the elderly and people with, who haven't got the dexterity or indeed are scared of games controllers, and, just would go, I'd love to play a game. We saw this a little bit some years ago with the Nintendo Wii, where suddenly, because the controller system was very accessible, all sorts of different types of people, not disabled, but just different interest groups. Suddenly went, I can pick this thing up, I can pretend to play tennis, and that was a game changer. And I think during the lockdown and stuff, we've seen people getting into games more from non-gaming background. Did you see the accessibility being able to go sideways across society a bit more?
Yeah, I do. Oddly enough, one of the things that we're eager, Liz, you can comment in a second, definitely. One of the things that, for example, our iGaze games is designed so that you saw those big balls. There are nice big buttons there, so someone with hasn't got the dexterity, an elderly person or someone with cerebral palsy, just someone who's not very good at targeting, not very sort of au fait with mobiles and that sort of thing, they would be able to even play chess. That we've got that down to 3 buttons because it's accessible. We've made it accessible to eye gaze and head movement and switches. We've also got it so that it will be playable on a mobile device with just 3 buttons. as well as, so we're showing how you can make mobile games or touchscreen games more accessible. These games are to be played free of charge by anyone around the planet, but they're also as an example to developers, so that they can see, oh, blimey, it's not rocket science. You just do that. It's just presenting the same game in a slightly different format. So I do see. I'm very eager for the for the mobile market to if you like, as far as people with the kind of people that you're talking about, elderly people who aren't as dexterous as the rest of us, so that they can make their devices more touch friendly, their games more touch friendly. And Liz, I mean, you've given a little bit of advice on. We can't tell you which companies you've given advice to, but just a couple of very, very small techniques, for example, with mobiles, Liz.
Yeah. So like some of the advice that we give, it might sound like common sense, but I think a lot of people just don't think about it when you access your phone in a regular way. But some of the advice that we give is just to make menus as kind of clear as possible with easily accessible target sizes, where somebody who might have a better kind of overall movement rather than really tiny finger movements can press those buttons and things aren't too cluttered on the page. And I think it's a really interesting point that you made about accessibility being more than physical sometimes. It has a lot to do with just how you present information to somebody so that they feel comfortable using it. So we give some advice in terms of design, and just making things accessible to tap functions rather than swiping, which is just the hugest thing. You wouldn't even think about it, but a lot of people can't. Yeah, a lot of people can't do that, especially not for a long time. If you think about, the fatigue that you get in your thumb when you're texting all the time, for some people that's a lot worse. It means they can only use something for 10 minutes or so. So those things can make a big difference.
Absolutely.
Rich. Oh, sorry, Mick.
No, I was just going to say exactly, Liz. As you're saying, there are ways round swiping. It's like touch what you want, touch where you want it to go, and let it move itself. Quite often that is there are ways very straightforward. So in other words, someone can play these games simply by tapping. You make the targets the right size, and they can play it far more easily. It's not rocket science, and that's partly why we're doing what we're doing, to show that it's not rocket
That's
science.
amazing. Rich, just from a developer's point of view, I mean, developer publisher as you are, have you seen any of this filter into your teams and what they're up to?
Yeah, and actually, just to go off that point Dr. Mick just made, it's often the simplest things that can make a difference. So we run a game called RuneScape. It's an online living game. You move by clicking here, clicking there. For the regular player, up until recently, it was a small little crosshair. We're bringing the game to mobile, and we thought it was a simple thing: make the crosshair bigger, put a circle around it to make it a bit obvious on the small screen. But then we thought, what if we enable that for PC as well? Just to make it a bit more visible on the screen where it was. And we did that. And the reaction we got from some of the community, especially those whose eyesight was not great, was just fantastic. We had comments from players that we probably weren't even aware of, but they have what's it called, retinitis pigmentosa, which is where absolutely very tight tunnel vision, where their eyesight maybe goes down to like 5% of normal stuff. That really helped them play. And I watched this chat blow up in the forums about how many people it was helping. They all buddied up. They now play together. It was a wonderful thing that actually brought people together. And that's such a simple thing, just making it more obvious where your cursor is on the screen. It's often a simple little a simple little fix.
Yeah.
I mean, great design is all about simplicity, and sometimes simplicity is quite difficult to get to. I mean, in terms of we're all in this kind of coming out of, easing out of a lockdown, but we've been with the curse of COVID-19 now for it feels like 4 months. How's that affected, Mick and Liz? How's it affected the work you do on a daily basis?
Liz, if you start, and then I'll share my screen and we can carry on from there. Is that all right? How it's, because Liz is as I say, she's a specialist occupational therapist, and she goes out and works with people normally face to face. It's always very important to us. We plan the assessment, and then we go out there. I mean, do you want to explain how an assessment normally works?
Has that all stopped for the time being?
Yeah. So normally the people who are on the service delivery team, we go out in pairs of 2 to each assessment. And a lot of our assessments, more than half, would you say, Mick, are out at people's homes, sometimes in hospitals or schools or things like that, but mostly in people's homes all over the country. So normally every person on the team has about 3 visits a week. And there's 8 of us. So you can figure out how many visits that is a week. But usually that's how we fill our week. The majority of the time is going out. We get in the morning, we pack the van full of equipment that we've kind of prepared a couple days before. We go out and we'll assess somebody, and then we might loan them something if we find something that works for them, and then we go back. But we haven't been able to do any of that since March. I think we were all a little bit worried about how that was going to go, how we were going to possibly do assessments when we can't show up and watch the way that people move and interact with things. But surprisingly, we've been doing a lot of really successful video calls. I think all of the projects under the charity have been working as well as they possibly can be remotely. So
absolutely. And can you see that, Liz, now, the screen?
Yeah, so a big part of that is Liam, our #1 office man right now. He has been in the office preparing, cleaning, quarantining, packing, and posting all the pieces of equipment that we need to get out to all of our clients all by himself. So he's been huge in helping the just things carry on and us being able to loan things to people.
And the rest of us have been using Teams, and Zoom to communicate with each other, to plan the assessments, and also to carry out the assessments as well. Just for example, I just chip in here, Liz. This is a guy called Drew, for example, and these are he's in the middle, obviously, and my 2 of my assessment colleagues, they're both occupational therapists there, Joe and Frankie. I just dropped in on the call just to say hi to him, but this is by planning the assessment, by sending the equipment out, and then working online in partnership with someone who works with him to actually position the various devices until they're in the optimal, the best, most comfortable, most successful, safest position. You then, I don't know if you can see these, but hopefully you'll see all of the, good. You'll see all of these are all the different access devices. Some of these are those Logitech switches that we helped design, and there's a joystick there with his right hand, but this guy's got a fairly high spinal injury, so his hand movement is very, very difficult. He's just got his his lower arm movement more or less, and he's able to just about grip the joystick with his right hand. But basically, with an online assessment, that was we managed to get him gaming, and he was absolutely delighted. First time since the injury in 2014.
Wow.
We've been able to play FIFA. So.
And have you found? I mean, obviously there's a big learning curve to doing any of this stuff online, but
definitely, you definitely have to work a lot harder to communicate verbally how the process by which somebody sets something up, whether that be making a connection or finding a place to put a switch. And then there's also always people with different, they're on their mobile phone and they're kind of showing us what they think is one part of the screen, and can you move it over a little bit, move it up there. So it's a little bit funky at times, I guess, but I think it's been really good in a way, because we we can do it. You know, we can make resources and write down materials for people if they need to. And
do you think that might lead to another, like a parallel way of working? I'm not replacing, but you know, I mean, you were talking about being global, and you know, is that something?
Absolutely. Sorry, I'll just chip in, Liz, if that's okay. But yes, Andy, we can't directly help everyone in the world, you know, which is why, obviously, that for that reason we get the training resources out so other professionals and people can do, you know, can take it over themselves. You know, can use our resources to help themselves learn and help locally wherever they are in the world. We do already work with some individuals. Alan Hartman from Turn 10 introduced us to a guy in China about just over a year ago, a lovely guy, Dong, and he was struggling just with trying to steer with the keyboard. It was painful to watch, actually. And you know, he introduced myself and Liz to him, and we were able to help him online. We had a lovely, and he's got, not only can he play Forza, but he got in touch with us the other day. We've gradually added to those resources, and he was playing other games as well, wasn't he, Liz? Now he was telling me.
Yeah, he plays Red Dead. He plays a lot of games. I can't remember now. There's one that I didn't know in particular, but you know, really complex games that use the whole controller. So he's got a whole big setup now.
So, and one of the reasons why we work with individuals around the world is partly to find out what context, you know, what their particular context is. There's a little guy we're helping in, near the Amazon in Brazil, a little guy with a high spinal injury. We learn about the context within which these people are gaming, and which helps our practice and helps us when we're saying, this is, you know, when we're trying to advise people around the world. We can't just be in our own little closed world of the UK. We want to make sure that what we're saying is relevant to as widely as possible. So we do work with some individuals. We do some assessments that are just online, but certainly a lot of these, as soon as we're allowed to, we'll be following up with, you know, with face-to-face support.
I mean, that's really encouraging to hear. So, I mean, in terms of to be simplistic, and apologies, it's like in terms of the amount, the workload that Special Effect do, yes, it's been effective, but you're working throughout, you're helping people, there are things that you're learning, you know, so that is not a disaster by any means, and there's some good learnings to be done there.
Absolutely.
But I guess the big but is that, you know, a lot of your activity, fundraising activity, specifically, I mean, we've seen down the years, Special Effect are fantastic at enabling and inspiring the community to go and do things, physical things. A lot of that's been curtailed by COVID-19, to say the least. And I'm aware of one of your big fundraisers of a physical thing is the Twin Town automobile extravaganza, which was planned for May, if I'm right in remembering. And that is a big set piece, takes a lot of time, a lot of people taking cars from the UK to France in a kind of gumball rally fashion. And that's been postponed, I assume, till next year or possibly later, who knows. So I guess the downside of everything has been trying to raise the money, which kind of takes us into the kind of the next set piece fundraiser for the year, which is One Special Day, which is now into its 4th year, is it, or is it its 5th year? I can't remember.
It's actually its 4th year. It started in 2016.
And that is a day where it was one of the original supporters was Charlie Chaplin. Charlie Chaplin. So apologies, Charlie. At First Touch Games, and he very simplistically sort of came up with a brilliant idea, which was, you know, we get revenue 365 days a year. What about if we gave 1 day's revenue from our games to Special Effect to allow them to work 365 days a year, or 366 in the case of a leap year like this? So from that perspective, that's going ahead, isn't it? It's not been fully announced yet, I know, but you've got a good cadre of supporters, and it takes place in October.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that idea, like a lot of our fundraising ideas, oddly enough, came about after a few pints one evening, and all of a sudden there's like this sort of light bulb appeared, and yeah, and you, first of all you thought, nah, don't be ridiculous, and then it's, you know, he said, no, let's do this, and you know, we'll lead the way, and other. And we haven't sold it. It's been the industry. They do regard us now as a privilege. They regard us as partners now, as colleagues, and that's a huge privilege, because that's all we ever wanted to be. And really, to sort of get that much respect for them to realise, actually, these guys, you know, are here to actually team up with us to make things more accessible to everybody.
It comes back to, Mick, what you said right at the beginning, which was, you know, special effects set out to show what can be done rather than telling people what they could be doing. Absolutely. And I think that's the show rather than tell has been special effects, key word, really.
I absolutely. And so what happened was that various individuals like Charlie, they were leaders like yourself, leaders telling other people about it. Look, this is an opportunity here to help these guys who are our colleagues. You know, as I say, I could go on and on and on, but certainly seriously, deserve a name check here. They have been very, very good with talking to mobile developers as well, and so there are several people, and the word's got round. It's been a case of, oh right, so that's what these guys do. Let's help them out. They don't charge for anything, so let's help them survive. You know, and obviously Jagex have been brilliant as well. And we'll come in. I'll just show you a couple of screens if that's okay.
Yeah, please do.
Take you onto that, and
I'll be asking Richard a bit why he's so passionate about it.
Yeah, are you able? Bear with me. Yeah, if that's okay. I'll
go for it.
Go to the right one. Okay, right, here we go. I'll just share that. Bear with me, and hopefully you can see this. Can you see this guy here?
Yeah.
Well, just to show that we're actually getting into hospitals as well. This is work that Liz has done. She's, you know, to show how difficult it's been. Stuart there, and before we, very, very quickly, Liz, if it's okay, if you could just talk about Bex, what it's been like to help her before we go. We will get to.
Don't worry, Mick.
In a second, if that's okay.
Yeah, so I guess this falls under a slightly different project in the charity that's maybe less known or talked about. And it kind of travels through word of mouth. There's 4 of us who work on this team, and Bex is one of the people that we've been helping a lot during lockdown. She suffered, or she had a stroke, and that left her unable to move all of the parts of her body except for her eyes. So she's been in a brain injury rehab unit, going through various therapies and things like that. And we've been working with her for a few months with her eye movement. And so this is a software that exists that is really flexible. So we kind of created this page for her. And so these are all the things that she can now control with her eyes. And that started out with just learning how to move her eyes around the screen. She didn't have any experience doing this before. So now she can email people, and she can type out phrases for herself. She can set up meetings with people on Skype. She has a few entertainment options on there. And so I think the point that Mick was referring to was about how many more sessions we've been able to do over lockdown, really, compared to what we normally would be doing with all the different kind of clients we'd be rotating through in a week. We've been working with Bex once, if not twice a week, to really progress what she's been able to do. So it's been really rewarding in that way.
Absolutely. And that's great, Liz. I'm just moving forward now. This is an example of do you recognize a couple of guys here?
Yes, I do.
Look at that. That's
Spikes in green.
You're looking good, Andy. You lost weight.
Yeah, I was looking kind of nunnish.
Suits you, definitely. Look
very much.
But yeah, but anyway, sorry, I just thought I'd throw that one in. Nick told me to do that. It wasn't my idea.
I like it.
Anyway, this is one special day, and I just what it's on 2nd October. It's industry wide. Anyone in the in the industry, games industry, is welcome if they'd like to help out on that day, 2nd October. We've over £1 million has been $1 million. Has been raised since the first One Special Day, and it's vital income that's enabled us to help disabled gamers, in the way that I told you, all over the world. And these are just some ways that you can support it. You can, as Andy was saying, UK revenue from one or more titles. Like many mobile companies, Days stream revenue, like a lot of games, PC games companies. For example, some people have made a company or personal donation, and a virtual event as well. Because some people have been doing bake sales and that sort of thing. Well, if there's a virtual event, virtual run or quiz or bingo, then raise funds that way. We don't. All partners' contributions remain confidential. That's really important, and we just give out the total at the end of what's been raised. That's really important because, well, obviously, it's the fact that people are helping in any way is a huge deal for us. And some people are sort of they're helping through a humble bundle that we do. There's Supercell of helping out with some of their games, and the other games, as the one at the top there is that it's DLCs that they're that they're selling DLCs on the day, specifically designed to help us, to the funds go to help us. So that's the way that it works. Onto you, Rich, to say that you guys have been amazing. Jagex have been amazing over several years now, and helping us in this way is no exception. You've been terrific. So over to you. Over to you, Rich.
So the picture I was looking at, which may look a bit odd, but there's also a way of not just using your donations to support the work Special Effect does. You can also use your game or your platform to engage your community as well, to get them engaged with the work that Special Effect does, and to spread the word. So in RuneScape last year, for One Special Day, the store had effectively free to claim One Special Day achievement capes that your avatar would wear in game, and you could pick up a balloon. I think, and in the day 70,000 people did that. So you had a world with 70,000 people walking around with One Special Day capes talking about Special Effect. And so that was the message spreading mechanic of it. And then obviously all the store takings for that period went as an effective donation to Special Effect. But I think that's one of the most powerful things we can do here with our games, is we reach an incredibly diverse and supportive audience through our games as well. And you look at the RuneScape community, and over the years how they have personally taken Special Effect to heart as well. When we run RuneFest, our fan convention, normally every year, not this year, but we'll come up with something, which attracts thousands of players into one place. They run their own Fringe festival, and the multitude of events that the players now put on around RuneFest themselves that raise money themselves for Special Effect is quite incredible. They have a charity picnic session where they all meet up the day before the festival begins. They do the auction as well, and that's something that can be run totally online now. That doesn't need to stop. They'll probably still be doing that. They make their own little badges and they sell it, and then that's one of the most important. That's one of the special things is how we've been able to talk to players, and even through game blasts, which we've done in the past. We do the 24-hour kind of telethon stream style thing. 24 hours of doing this kind of stuff. It's quite a mission. But do you remember that? But what was that? That was 350,000 viewers on a stream. That kind of spread of message and understanding, and in 24 hours, our players gave 100 grand.
It's amazing. I mean, but that, Rich, that sort of sounds exactly to just the kind of, it's the pattern again of you're not telling your community what, you're just saying, look, this is what can happen, and the community take it on board and they go with it, and they do all sorts of things that will surprise you, will enchant you, will make you laugh, and that thing becomes just an ever, it just becomes an ever fulfilling service. It's bigger and bigger. That is pretty amazing. I mean, that's the effect of that is a special effect, really.
Absolutely.
It's interesting to see that we've, when we talk about One Special Day, it's coming on the 2nd of October, folks. And there are companies that game, very, very significant game companies, as well as some up and coming games companies. But I think it's safe to say that Rare, who are a great British success story, Sega, Codemasters, another great British success story, Space Ape, another great British success story, Miniclip, another one, and Curve Digital, they're all on board, at least. I know there's loads more that are under the hood, and you're going to be announcing in probably around about 2 weeks' time, I believe, more about how people can get involved. I'm very pleased to say that that one of my businesses, Just Flight, which is a little flight sim business, and we do some train stuff, we're going to support One Special Day this year. So we're really chuffed about that. And we're going to try and figure out how we can empower our community, which can be tetchy, to say the least. We can give them some special effect love. So more on that when it comes. But I mean, do you think, as we sort of draw to an end, I mean, COVID-19, coronavirus, has been devastating for the world, but do you think there's anything positive that we talked a bit today, but is there anything positive that you see emerging specifically around the work you do for the future?
One of the things is that but this might sound very simplistic, but we the whole world is having a taste of what it's like to be locked down, to be locked in. The people that we're working with, that's their lives. They find it very, very difficult to be able to go out, and a lot of them are unable to go out at all. And even if they are, they can only, there's very little that they can do out there. So in a way, I'm hoping that people will have a better, deeper understanding of how important it is for people to be able to do whatever they want in a video game. They can take control, they can socialize with anyone around the planet, and they can play games on a level playing field with them. So I'm hoping that, and the wonderful thing about about telecommunications now is that it's getting better and better all the time. People are communicating more effectively online as we are now, and so which means that it's easier and more accessible. The world of gaming is becoming increasingly accessible to people with disabilities, and people like yourselves and people like the games industry, whether they're helping charities like ourselves or whether they're making their games more accessible, they're making the virtual world more accessible to everyone. And I do think that by having, as I say, a taste of what it's like to be locked in, that to be able to experience the joy that it gives someone to be able to be who they want, go where they want, is massive. I honestly got this. We received this email from the parent of someone only today. A handwritten letter actually when they returned some loan equipment. I'll just share it because it sort of sums it up really. Really, really well. Bear with me. This is my final thing I show you on here. But yeah, here we go. Sorry. As I say, it was just this afternoon. My colleague sent it. Sorry. I'm really sorry. I'll just very, very quickly to it. Ding, ding. Yeah, here we go. To all at Special Effect, thank you for everything. You literally changed his life and gave him a window on the world. And that's what wow. That's what you guys in the industry are helping us to do. That's the freedom that you're helping us to enable people to achieve. Instead of being locked in and locked down for most of their lives.
It's totally, I mean, it's absolutely incredible, Mick, as you know, what you guys do, bringing not just that level of, you know, joy to people of being able to play who you know normally wouldn't have that, but also, you know, I would guess there are some sort of the physical benefits of being able to, you know, when it comes to actually being able to use a controller from an OT perspective, Liz, I'm sure that's very important as well. When you were training as an OT, or, you know, I'm sure video games weren't part of the of the training, but just could you talk a little bit about that? Like I assume moving forward and looking at the work that you're doing, that it should now be part of, you know, the OT work that is done with all sorts of people with all sorts of disabilities.
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting question. And I think it brings up a good point about what we sort of the approach that we take, where we work with people in complete partnership to help them play the games that they want to play in the way that they want to play them, in the easiest way, the most comfortable way, the safest way. Whereas there is, I think, a lot of scope now for therapists introducing technology and gaming into their own therapy goals, but that's sort of the opposite of what we do. I think they both have their place, but I certainly see myself following this track. Yeah.
Yeah. So basically, the main idea of access to a video game is fun and having an opportunity to be sociable, play with your brother and sister, play online with your mate if you can't go and visit them. But there are indeed, in many cases, therapeutic benefits as well. There's the one guy, the picture I showed you earlier, the guy who was playing FIFA with one joystick and a couple of buttons. That's when he was. The only game he wanted to play or could play at that time was FIFA. He came back for an assessment just before lockdown, age 14 now.
Exactly.
And it was amazing. He's now got 2 joysticks. And how many buttons, Liz?
Like 6, maybe.
Like a F-35 cockpit there. Yeah, great.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
It was amazing, you know, and
it's
you know,
true. I think that's the biggest therapeutic benefit we always see is you know, just change, like you know, when you can see somebody's mood change, and then sometimes we'll get feedback about, you know, how their mood might have improved or something like that, which we're not looking for, but that's often what is the most kind of visible when you're working with people is that ability to connect, you know what I mean, that a lot of people take for granted.
I've never ever thought of what Mick said 5 minutes ago about, you know, this has given the whole world an experience of what it's like not to have complete freedom. Almost to every person on the planet that they've had to compromise. So if the world of video games and the world of special effect can bring joy into those people who have got access compromises, then that's got to be an amazing thing. And just the whole socialization and hearing what Mick and Liz are saying about, you know, the therapeutic bonuses, really, I guess, from seeing people really starting to take control for themselves.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, I mean, this has been a really very special episode. Thank you so much, Mick and Liz and Rich, for joining us and talking about the incredible work that Special Effect does. If people are watching and want to find out how they can get involved or do with One Special Day or do more, or maybe they know someone or you know that wants that needs the benefit of what you're offering, how can people find out more?
Well, if they just go to the website, and there's a you know, that's the best way, and there's just an inquiry form, isn't there, Liz? You know, to get in touch with us. Yeah. So website, make the inquiry, and then we'll be dealing with them as soon as we can. Yeah.
And one special day happens on Friday the 2nd of October 2020. So that's only like 4 months away today. Wow.
We're going to think about what we're going to do for that, Andy.
Yeah, we need to think about that. We haven't got an answer today.
But we're taking we're crowdsourcing suggestions of what you'd like Andy and I to do for
one special
day. Brilliant. Mick, Liz, Rich, thank you so much for joining us. It's been a real pleasure. Thank you.